Actually, it was Wednesday when Wednesdays when Larry Levance and Larry Patterson started Wednesday nights there. That was the big night there. Then Saturdays when T. Scott and then later on Tony Humphries took over the helm. I was there almost every weekend. I would leave on Saturdays, would leave Zanzibar and go to the garage.
So today is Sunday, October 24th, 2021. Who are we speaking with?
Joseph Smith.
What does house music mean to you?
That definition has evolved over some time since I was kind of in the beginning. So it was a feeling to, it is what it is.
Talk about the distinction between house versus club music, or what did you call it back in the day?
Well, since I was right before that started, so disco was, which I just was club music, underground dance music. I just think it was just, for me, the scene for the underground dance music or club music was more commercialized in the sense that it was more musical, where house music itself was, I used to call it pots and pans. Everybody used to throw in everything in the kitchen sink and come up with something. You know, I think house music is more so as a global, I mean, before it turned global, was more gospel, like soulful kind of stuff. But, you know, in the sense, it wasn't as constructed as club music was.
That's
how I
thing.
see it.
I love that. I love that description. Let's go to the beginning. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in East Orange, New Jersey, and I grew up in East Orange, the Newark area. Stayed there until 1991 and moved out of the area then.
And then music in the household. What did you hear when you were growing up in the house?
Oh, I was blessed. My parents were very musical people. Besides the basic Aretha Franklin's and, you know, that kind of stuff, the Ray Charles kind of thing, I was exposed to a lot of stuff like Nina Simone. I happened to see Nina Simone. She was like one of the first artists that I had seen. Matter of fact, Questlove's special that he has out, that documentary, I was at that event.
Really?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, when you're a kid, see, I was a kid. So when you're a kid, I didn't realize the gravity of it until I I actually saw that video clip a couple of years ago, and I pasted it on my Facebook page, but I didn't know I never knew how massive that event was until Questlove did it. But I was a kid, I was like 9. So yeah, you know, when you're a kid and your parents take you somewhere and all that's happening, it's just, you know, we went to Brooklyn and that and all of that. I mean, not Brooklyn, Harlem, and did all of that, and it just was just, you know, it was a trip. So it wasn't like, you know, a musical experience, but that was like my first, you know, taste of outside genre. My father, the first song that I knew of as a baby was Johnny Mathis's Misty. My father used to whistle that to me when I was a baby.
Tell us about the evolution of the first club you went to. Do you remember?
What would be the first club? Well, that's a good question. Now, I'm gonna start like the first well, I guess the commercialized club that I went to was Studio 54. I was 17 when I got in there.
Really?
Yeah, I had when I was in high school, I was right, and people have to understand, when I was in high school, when I started high school in 74 and I graduated in 78, discos really started happening around 75, 76. And there were so many clubs and venues that, you know, I was infatuated with the idea of Studio 54. I really was. And me and a couple of friends got on the train from Newark and went over and stood out there, and Steve Rubell picked us and we got in. So, I mean,
Describe.
it was amazing. I mean, you know, I was just the light show, it was amazing. That's when I really fell in love with disco music. Although in high school, I was in a dance group called Disco 77 and a half, and that's when cable TV had really started. So we were doing that kind of stuff. So I was really in love with like disco stuff, like on T Connection, and who else? Peter Brown, those type of disco records. So
Describe Studio 54. Like paint the picture of what was like how long were you online? Do you remember what you were dressed in? What was the crowd like when you went inside? Like paint the picture for somebody that never been there before.
Well, we were in regular street clothes, and we didn't even think we were going to get in there. It was just something, you know, we just got on the train and went over there. And it was a shock that he even, you know, he would stand there and pick people. That's how he do things. And it was a shock. He was like, and, you know, there were people who were standing around us who were just dressed to the nines, just fabulously dressed people. And he's like, hey, you. And, you know, we didn't know who would turn around with you and your guys. We came on and he pulled us in, man. And they didn't really card us, because that's what I thought they was going to do, was card us, but they didn't. And we got in and just walked around the place and just watching. I mean, it was just amazing. It was amazing to see people do things. You know, I was watching people do stuff I've never seen before. I mean, people dancing in the nude, the music, the sound system. It was amazing. And when I left there, it just inspired me to actually enjoy the culture more.
Paradise Garage.
Let's start with Zanzibar first.
Oh, what is Club Zanzibar?
Club Zanzibar, for me, I spent most of my club life there. Even though I was a member at Garage, I spent most of my club life there because it was convenient. I hate when they say they try to compare it to the Garage. It really never was a comparison. Zanzibar was actually really a bar, and they had the downstairs area, then they had the upstairs, the club upstairs, and it had a system similar to had a Richard Long system in it. So it gave that atmosphere of New York club, but it really wasn't, to me, it really wasn't the Paradise Garage, a copy of the club, as people like portray it to be. It never was that. Actually, that club was more soulful. That's one of the most soulful clubs I've ever been to in my life. You know what I mean? And even though they they played a lot of stuff, they both simultaneously, the Garage and Zanzibar simultaneously played some of the same stuff. It just was, Newark is more of a gospel soulish town, and that's how Zanzibar was.
What was the night to go with Zanzibar? What was like the night to go?
Actually, it was Wednesday when Wednesdays, when Larry Levance and Larry Patterson started Wednesday nights there. That was the big night there. Then Saturdays, when T. Scott and then later on Tony Humphries took over the helm. I was there almost every weekend. I would leave on Saturdays, would leave Zanzibar and go to the garage. Yeah.
No sleep.
No sleep.
Wow. There's so much to unpack about Zanzibar. What does Zanzibar mean to New Jersey club scene?
I think at Zanzibar, the club scene is owned by Al Murphy. Al Murphy is the one who actually really formulated the dance club scene there. Not only because he had, he ran Zanzibar, he had Club Shanique's and some other spots in Newark, but it was somewhere to go. Zanzibar was the place to go. You didn't have to go to New York because it was right there. You didn't have to go. And Al Murphy, being from Newark, knew what to give the people in Newark to keep them there. So, I mean, it really, as a venue, it really was a standout there in Newark. Zanzibar was. There was other venues there too besides Zanzibar, like Docks and Club Sensations. And I mentioned Shanique's, some other spots, but I mean, Zanzibar was the premier spot, and Al Murphy definitely put it on the map. And Shelton, after Al Murphy left, Shelton definitely carried that flame with that club. Shelton Hayes.
Live performances. Is there a live performance at Zanzibar that just like, ooh, they
well,
turned...
the live the grand opening with Grace Jones, that was very memorable. Who would I say would be? I would put Colonel on the list, as Colonel Abrahms is one. People are going to kill me because I'm it's been so long.
There was so many. There must have been so
many. I mean, I've seen Chaka there. I've seen just so many. Another standout. This because the record was huge when she performed there. Sable, Love So Special. That was a huge party. A lot of people. Alternate. I mean, I could just go on and just name people. I mean, I don't want to feel like I'm leaving anybody else, because a lot of them are my friends too. So I don't want to feel like I'm singling anybody out. Just because there was so many performances. I enjoyed pretty much a lot of them. But Zanzibar was very well known too. If you sucked, they let you know. So I mean, again, I don't think I can really. I mean, those would stand out performances, but there's a lot more I'm sure I'm missing.
Describe the sound system at Zanzibar.
Oh, that sound system. The acoustics in that spot was, I mean, it had a Richard Long system, of course, with the Thorns turntables. And that sound system, oh my God. That was a club where the patrons respected the system. And if the system wasn't on par, the patrons knew it. You could hear Zanzibar pumping, the bass resonating down the street on Broad Street. You could actually hear it. I'm not saying you couldn't hear it at the garage too, but it was really, because the garage is, it was a warehouse, and Zanzibar was a smaller venue, but you could hear, you knew that the club was jumping when you was outside standing in line trying to get in. So that was one of the features of Zanzibar too, is that you knew from the outside what was going on in the inside.
Describe the dancing.
The dance. What do you mean by dancing?
How were people dancing? Like, I'm sure the dancing was probably very different than Studio 54.
Oh yeah, much different than that. The dancing there was more so, and it wasn't like the garage either. I mean, I'm gonna use the term circle dancing as a reference. It was pre-circle dancing. Everybody was, into their own construct of dancing, and it wasn't more so a battle of who was good. I mean, who was the best? A battle of style, a style thing. People were onto their own thing. I think they interpreted them back then, and that just goes across the board in general. People interpreted music musically different than they do now. So I mean, it was more, you felt the instruments, you felt the instruments of the song, you listened to the lyrics, and you interpret that into your dance. Where I think it's kind of, and that's just me, my opinion. I think it's kind of biased, I'm a little biased with it, and I think it's more formulated, on show, not so much feeling. There's people out there who are still probably doing it because what they feel in the music, but I think some of it, when I witness people, I think it's showy.
I think that's spot on. Yeah, I feel like a lot of I shouldn't say a lot, but I feel like some of the dancing that I see now is more performance,
right?
As opposed to like losing themselves in the music and just letting go, right?
Right.
They're like, okay, who's looking at me? Let me do this push up real quick.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I see it. It's and I think some of that evolution has come to it because the music has changed as well. The music has changed as well.
So much to unpack. Would a club like Zanzibar work today?
I would say no, because of streaming, people wanting things for free, and the appreciation factor. I don't think people would appreciate something like that anymore, because everybody's a DJ now. They can go to home. You go on the internet, people's DJing on the internet. So why they want to be confined to being in a building when they can do what they want to do in their house or wherever they at? You understand what I mean? Not on the. I mean, and I mean, I'm probably sure in Europe is probably a better. That would probably be a better venue. I mean, clubs would be a better venue, but here in America, I don't see it as much because people people don't want to spend money into doing house music, because people who go to house music patrons that go, they are not necessarily drinkers. And they don't have. I mean, that's what when that was Zanzibar was a bar. That's where they made their money. So I mean, if they're not being other avenues of way to make money, then it's not really a financial feasible thing. That's how I see it. But I don't. I mean, and you know what? I don't see it, and I'm gonna. I don't see it. I'm gonna leave it open, but I don't see it happening. But you come up with the right concept, right idea, it can. But
the garage.
I'm here in Atlanta. There's no, as diverse as this city is, there is no big mainstay venue. And that's across the board. Hip hop, R&B, dance, none of that. I mean, because and you'll have hip hoppers and people in R&B who will tend to spend money on drinks. But I'm just saying there is no venues like that.
The garage was many things, but it was also a safe haven for the LGBT community. Describe the crowd that went to Zanzibar.
Well, when I went, the Zanzibar has always been like that. And you have to figure in the fact in the times when I was hanging out, it wasn't, the gay life was not mainstream. So that's why it was a more of a, to me, today's crowd, it's all out there. Whereas though in, Zanzibar and Garage and, Better Days, which was a gay club, but just those clubs were secret societies with people with gay life who were necessarily not really out there, but doing their thing and had a safe space. And the music also, gave people some kind of safety, knowing that this was our music, or this is what we do and we're into. And of course, nobody would understand it because this is who we are. When again, the gay culture has influenced every part of culture, so it is so mainstream now that it's just common. You don't even think of it in those terms.
Mm. When I think about house music in general, I feel as though Jersey has a very specific sound. Describe the Jersey sound.
Jersey sound is very, very gospel influenced. It's pretty much that, the Jersey sound. It was what made it different from Mercedes Chicago house sound, even though the vocals were different, the melodies were different. Again, it gets to the non-constructionist of the music that was coming out of Chicago and what was coming out of Jersey. And that's not knocking Chicago, that's just what they were into at the time. So and they evolved. So I mean, that's where I see the Jersey sound. It was pretty much that gospel influenced kind of stuff.
What is Movin Records?
That's such a broad question. Well, I'm sure when Abby, and KB had created something that is iconic, and I was just so fortunate to be a part of that. It was, it had some of the same kind of motif as Vinyl Mania did, but not to knock Manny or Charlie Capone, because I love those guys. I mean, and I guess let me rephrase that. The home feeling, the home kind of style feeling that vinyl had, Movin had it that way too. And again, that we offered them opportunity not to travel, go outside of their own community to get that music. They could get it right there in Jersey. I mean, I shopped at vinyl too, but I just said it was somewhere where it was the music that everybody was playing with. They had a place. They didn't have to go to New York to get it.
How long were you at Movin Records?
I started there at 82, maybe 81, 82. And I left in 91.
Record stores are a place to buy music, but historically they've also been a social node as well, for people to meet. And describe Friday night at the record store.
Oh, Friday night in the record store was like this is a bad analogy. Friday night at the record store was like a drug addict waiting on their drugs delivery. It's a bad analogy, but it kind of fits, because we were so fortunate to have people, and actually it would probably be after when Tony would do his radio show on KISS, they would be up in that store trying to find out what was played. Do we have the records? And that was amazing. That was amazing. For the time that Movin was really on top, when we were on top of the game with that, it was really amazing to see that, and how much they respected the choices that we had in the store. So
what happened to the music industry, the record industry?
The major records dropped their dance departments. I think it started there, and then it started with the elimination of the 12 inches, and The streaming part didn't happen. That really happened after the fact. But I really think it started when major labels started dropping their dance departments and wasn't so much focused on the dance music itself, but had, you know, had people doing dance, conglomerating the departments to include dance mixes on, say, pop commercial artists. So they dropped that whole scene. And, you know, now that I think about, look back, it may not, I mean, at the time, I didn't want, didn't look well. It wasn't a good look. But at this time, it's really no commercial variety in it. Because no one is really, everybody's doing stuff. There's no need for a dance department. But that's when, you know, back, you know, when Warner's and MCA and them were doing the dance stuff, it was really, and Epic, Columbia was really doing it at the time. They were really focused on it. They're not so much focused. They're not focused on that no more. And again, the sound of dance music has changed. Well, we don't consider Beyonce dance music, but somebody else does. So they're not gonna focus on an underground dance record for Beyonce when her records come out as dance records. You know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying? So that's a little, I don't see it making, I don't see them investing a lot of money in that genre.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I really think it really started when they started eliminating the 12-inch and you know, the turntables and that kind of stuff. When that started, the electronics, the tech side of it started to change. That's when I think dance music has changed.
When you were working at the record store, describe a typical day.
There was never a typical day at Movin. I mean, it's just like any other job. The thing with working at the record store, you know, for people that they think it's a glam job, it really isn't. It's just like any other job. But you know, they used to think, oh, you got a good job, you get all the records and all this other stuff. It's just, you still have to do things like any other job. It was just a job for me. I love the perks of it, but it was just a job.
What were the perks?
Oh, no, the perks is up on new music, being at industry parties, getting to meet artists. That was the perks. And it afforded me some benefits that I, you know, probably a lot of other people probably wouldn't have had. You know, I got to work on some records and produce a record, and it afforded me some perks probably some other people wouldn't have gotten. So, and I'm grateful to Abby, you know, for that platform for me to do that. So, yeah.
How did you meet Abby?
I met Abby. So I'm coming to the store. I got the way the story goes on my side of it. I used to come in there. I used to be almost every damn day, and I would come in there, and I just started working there. I would go back on the back behind the counter and start playing records, just like a lot of people who have worked there. I did that, and I used to do that all the time. And I used to pester Abby, I want to work here, I want to work here. And she gave in. So, you know, and then our friendship became really close because she knew my family. She got to meet my family, and she actually became part of it. So, you know, it wound up working out to be pretty good, but that's how I got there.
Tell people who else worked there with you, other notable names in the Jersey scene.
The other notables is Glenn Gil Knight, who did the house music special on Unsung. Gil Knight, Shahir Williams, Carlton Roseberg, Bird, House Mother Bird. There's so many people. Alan Anderson, Barbara Williams, Rob Savillas. A lot of people who wasn't on the payroll. They was just, we were very much of a family thing. I don't want to make sure I'm not forgetting somebody because it might kill me if I forget somebody. You know, when you're old, you don't remember everything. Who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting someone. Dennis McFadden. Yes, I know I'm forgetting somebody.
Did Kerry Chandler work there?
Who?
Did Kerry
Chandler?
Chandler?
He didn't. He was a regular. He never worked there. Again, he's like one of those. We had a lot of artists who would come in there and just be behind the counter helping. I mean, he never was an employee, but he was part of the family. I know, Abby put out some records with him, but he never was on the payroll per se like that. So there was a lot of people who've been into that store. You thought that worked there that was was staff, but that's how that store ran. A lot of people that are DJs, they're still out here. Local DJs, they came to that store and they would go up there. Like if I had to run to the store get something to eat, they would go up there and just cover the store. There was a lot of people who did that kind of stuff. That's why the iconicness of it, the store exists to this day because people really supported the store, supported what Movin was about. So
then tell us about the record label.
The record label, I know that Abby had there was some other major artists that had influenced Abby to go ahead and pursue that dream, and I think it did well. One of the records that I can't think of the name of the records now. See, I tell you again, you're getting old, you can't think of all these records. Besides, Let's Get Happy, the Intense record, there were several records that Abby put out that I liked. That she did well with. The label did well.
After Zanzibar, what clubs would you go to?
Well, I've been to many clubs around the world, even after and since Zanzibar. I've been to the Catch in LA. I told you about 54, Docs, Club Sensations, Charades. I used to work at Charades. That was East Orange. Ministry of Sound, the Hacienda, the Clubhouse in DC, the Edge, the Wet, tracks here in Atlanta and tracks in DC. Oh God, the warehouse in the Bronx. Oh man, it's just so many. Buttermilk Bottoms, Better Days, the Cheetah Club. At the time, especially when I was at Movin, there was something that I did that helped to try to keep the store, people coming in the store too. When Tony, I used to work with Tony on his radio show, and I would get records that he would play, get the names of the records he would play on his show, and bring him records that we would purchase. And once he get the airplay, people come in and we'd have them in the store. So that was kind of what some of the things that I did. So I was always at these spots, sitting here with these DJs were playing, and telling Abby, we need to order this, we need this, we need this. So I was everywhere, to be honest.
How come you never decided to become a DJ?
Well, my skills, you would think with all the legends I've been around, you would think I'd have that skill. My skills, I never focused on those skills to do the DJ, and I have played, and I played here at the Eagle a couple times. I have played in some spots, but after seeing what some of the legends that I know and some of my friends who are playing now go through, I don't want that response. I never was focused on. I was more about listening and dancing. That was my thing. So and program, my choice of program is totally off the charts of what somebody else would want to do. So
what do you said your friends are going through? What is some of your friends going through right now who are DJs?
I just think that the current status of some of these DJs, and when I look on Facebook and see the things that have been posted, and some of them I talk to them, they tell me just the egos is just like inflated to the point that there's some of them ain't no return. Again, I think a lot of that has to do with the tech, the way how the tech has changed, and people are DJing and now at home. It's like all these Nintendo guys now are DJs. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, without studying the craft and not recognizing it as a craft, because programming is a craft as far as I'm concerned. Or paying your dues, they just think they're on the same level as some of these guys who have been out there for a long time. So,
explain what programming is.
The way I was taught what a programmer is, that you reading the crowd, and it's not about you per se so much as what the crowd is out there feeding you. You should know when to bring a crowd up and bring a crowd down, how to introduce new music, how to take the old music and make someone who probably never heard it enjoy it. Setting the scene. So, and a lot of these guys don't do that. They're just throwing records on and think because they got the new record, the hottest record, that's gonna wow the crowd. Again, that whole thing has changed, because I have seen that, going out to some of these festivals and people put on these new records, they're running like they've never heard the record before. And I'm like, that record's not that great, but that's just me. But, again, it's being seen and not understanding or getting the feeling of what the music is. So,
given that you've traveled around the world, compare and contrast clubbing in the UK versus clubbing in the US.
I think that they're more in tune to our soulfulness than we are ourselves. At least especially back in the time when house music was happening, they actually misappropriated a lot of our stuff and our sound as their own. They misappropriated a lot of things that was going on in Chicago and Jersey, and made it their own, and we didn't capitalize on it as we should have. And because that's because they enjoyed more of the soulfulness of what we was presenting. They were more appreciative of the music even back then. So I haven't been to Europe in a while, so I don't know what they're digging on now. But it's back when I was in the midst of it, that's the way I had seen it. So,
Paradise Garage. What is the Paradise Garage?
A lot of things. That was the first time I honestly seen that people were really, the sound system was the star. This is not to discredit Larry Levan, because he was great, one of the greats, but I'm just saying that sound system they had in the garage was just, and the lights, and I mean, again, I've been to 54, it's still nothing compares to the garage and the sound. Zanzibar had its own sound. They all had their own unique sound, but you knew when you were in their own venues what they were featuring. They weren't piggybacking off of each other. So,
do you remember the first time you went to the garage? How did you get in? Who brought you there? describe the experience of walking through the club and what you saw and what you experienced.
Who was the first time? I can't remember the first, quite honestly, the first time that I went to the garage. What I can remember is the first time I got a Saturday night membership to the garage, because I used to go on Fridays originally. And, you know, people like, oh, you need to go on Saturdays, because Saturdays is when they really cut up and let loose. And I met Mike Brody. This is a funny story. Mike Brody, who was manager on the garage, I was kind of intimidated by him, because I was like, you know, I used to see this white guy walking around all the time, like, who's that? Who's that? When I was in there Fridays and didn't know who he was. And they would tell me I would have to interview with him, because they were doing interviews in order to get a core membership on Saturdays. And I was so afraid. I was like, I was so afraid that to get this membership, I wanted the membership. I wanted to go on Saturday. So I just, you know, buffed up and I said, look, I'm going to get this membership. So I went and applied for membership for Saturdays. And I actually sat down and interviewed with him. And the process was just amazing. I'm not going to get into the questions he asked, but it just was an amazing situation. And I mean, I just stopped going on Fridays, because Saturdays was it.
It was that different.
Yeah.
How so?
But Saturdays and Fridays, the difference with Saturdays and Fridays, Fridays was more of the straight kind of atmospheric kind of party or patronage, whereas those Fridays was straight off the charts gang. So, and the thing about that I like, you know, from being raised in New York, New Jersey area, that, you know, people didn't have an issue with people's sexuality.
Gotcha.
Even back then.
I can barely see you for some reason.
Can you see me? Okay.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, people didn't have an issue too much with a sexuality back then. I think they're more prudish now than they was back then, even though it's more mainstream. You just came there to dance. You didn't give a damn about what they were into. And, you know, the garage had a thing. I don't, you know, when I was going, we used to wear these things called gas pants. I don't know if you know what those pants are. Yeah. They're green army fatigue pants. They're like drawstring pants, and they were green, and everybody would wear them with most of the dudes would wear them with your sneakers. You would go and change. That whole thing, just going, you're coming in with your duffel bag and changing, and everybody, they had the unisex bathrooms. All of that was just off the charts.
You got to give us at least one question that he asked you.
No, I can't do that. I'm not gonna do that. I don't know anybody who's gotten interviewed by Mike Brody for garage Saturday membership would tell a question. Repeat one of his questions. So I'm not gonna do that.
Not even a little bit?
Nope.
What happened to the club scene?
For me, it kind of died off when the DJs died off. I think, you know, again, the transition from disco to underground. Well, disco, I would consider that the same thing. Disco to underground dance music to house, and the DJs that were out there doing their thing. A lot of them are not here no more, and the mystique about it is, to me, it was all a mystique, and it's kind of gone. Again, to piggyback on what I said earlier, a lot of it had to do with gay culture, and it's so mainstream now that there's no anonymity about it. There's no secretiveness about it anymore. So that kind of, for me, kind of destroyed it. Again, there's a whole new crew out there, and they're enjoying what they probably call that, but I can't. I myself would not be out there every weekend into that. Mm-mm.
Do you have or did you have a favorite DJ?
That would probably be. It's a tie between T. Scott and Tony Humphries. It's
Why?
a tie.
Why?
Well, because number one, we all good friends. I mean, I was good friends with all of them, but it was T. Scott. I used to be a roadie for T. Scott. You know what that is?
Explain to people.
I used to carry his when they were doing records and carrying them in milk crates. I was the one carrying them, and T. Scott carried a lot of records. And he, as far as giving me a break, it would have been him. He, as being a so-called playing on turntables. I won't call myself a DJ playing on turntables. It was T. Scott. T. Scott and I were friends since better days. And I would go with him when he played at Cheetah Club, Empire Skating Rink in Brooklyn, and Zanzibar, and he actually wheeled me off to Tony Humphries. Yeah, that's when T. Scott's last year at Zanzibar had came up. Tony was just kicking off at Zanzibar, and he told T. Scott, like, you need to go hang out with him, learn some of his knowledge and help him. And that's how me and Tony Humphries became cool. And Tony has taken me around the world with him. Again, it would be those two.
Oh, so you've actually traveled with Tony to his gigs around the world? Yeah. What's that like to be a roadie for a DJ and like seeing like everything from that vantage point?
Again, probably different then than it is probably now, because it was the celebrityism is different. Tony's celebrityism back then, when he was like king of the world, he was FM rated. He had Zanzibar, he had Kiss FM, and he was really breaking a lot of records. I mean, creating artists, house dance artists. He was doing a lot of that. So the celebrityism was just something that you would experience. I mean, seeing people now like Louis Vega, who's like on top of his game, and a lot of people he attract, but this is even before Louis. So, just to see how people overseas just adore him. They just, and mind you, this is like 83, 84. We were all over the place. I was just so blessed that it was him who took me around the world, to travel with.
Where did you remember some of the places you went to?
A lot of times we went to London quite a few times. And I went to Manchester with him, went to Canada with him. And this is before even if his fame started taking off and he was going to Germany and all these other places. At that time, I was on my way probably out of moving. So, and I moved to DC. So yeah, it was just, those times was just great. Because we were right in the infancy of house music, and he was as far as I'm concerned, was an ambassador to it. So, it was just great to see Ministry of Sound, just being in that, when watch them play there, and just it was just great.
Tell people what the Ministry of Sound is.
I would consider the Ministry of Sound a copy of the Paradise Garage.
Woo! Shots fired. Pew pew.
That's my opinion. Great sound system, nice space. It's been so long. I mean, it's been so long since I've been there. I don't even know what it looks like now because it's still open, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's still open. I haven't been there in a long time, but we went there when it was just really opening, and Tony was playing there quite a couple of times. I had a great time there. It just reminded me of the garage. It did. Back then, I don't know what it looks like now, but back then when it first opened.
Advice. What advice would you give to the next generation of DJs and club kids?
Quite honestly, I don't think they would want my advice. Because no, I don't think they would. Because they're so, into what they're doing now, and they don't see it. They don't see the legacy that I'm talking about. They don't see it. There's some that appreciate that, but they're too busy creating their own legacy. So I try to stay out of giving, except for the ones that are close to me, giving them advice. The rest of them, you do what you do, because a lot of them wasn't even born when I was out there. So, and even those, the ones I give advice, I appreciate them. And I mean, and even the ones that are out there, I learned from some of them that are out here now too, what they do. And it just makes me feel like they've learned something. You know understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's people out here still doing their thing, and like Louis and Tony, and I'm just talking about these cats because I know them, Louis, Tony, and Jihad and Beloved, quite a few other guys, and I'm not trying to make, just single them out, but I'm just saying I know these guys and they've been with the work they put in. So, I can't really speak for the other ones. And although I know them, I don't know them like that. You know what I mean?
What's the relationship between roller skate culture and club music, house music?
I think roller skate music, roller skate culture and house music, I think it was more of a connection with roller skate music and underground music.
What is underground music?
Because I think the beats per minute was slower. So, I mean, I know they're skating on house music now, but, back when I was skating, house music, if it wasn't, everything had to be pitched down for skaters. When the house music started happening. But, pretty much when T. Scott was playing, he pitched everything down except for underground dance or, disco stuff. So, because they, the speeds were different. So,
have you been to Sparkles on Sundays and Cascade on Wednesdays?
No.
There? It's rocking. It's rocking. If you still,
I'm sure. I'm sure they are. I haven't been. Besides, I'm not gonna. First of all, I ain't put my black ass in no roller skates. I'm too old to be doing that because you fall and break a bone, you break a bone. So I'm not doing it. And I see when they be skating, they be skating on such a fast pitch. I'm like, ooh, that's y'all can have that. So I'm not gonna do that. But I mean, again, they adjusted to what they need to do. But when I was skating, that was pretty much, the beats per minute was slower, and then people pitched down. So again, they're probably not pitching down now because people are skating faster. So
you were there at the birth and origin and evolution of the Jersey house scene. If someone were to tell that story, how would you tell that story, like in a synopsis of the Jersey house scene?
A lot of great talent wasn't capitalized on well. Some of the people that were involved didn't look at the long term, was looking at the short term. Some of the people that were involved who kind of made it especially off the backs of people in Jersey, didn't take those people on with them. And I mean, it, you know, but it made itself a genre that, you know, I'm glad I'm part of that, but it just, you know, that's the way I see it. There was some great music and artists that came out of that. There really was. I mean, Adiva, Kenny Bobian, the Jamanda, Josh Milan. It just was some great, Michael Wofford, just some great people came out of that. But again, I mean, a lot of it wasn't, and I say that happened to Chicago too, that they didn't capitalize.
And when you say capitalize, what do you mean by that?
Recognize they had something and created something that's unique to me, meaning that they didn't push it and let corporate entities put their hands in it, and the corporate entities were making the money and they weren't. And those who were getting money for the corporate entities weren't putting it back into their communities.
Got you. I got you. Those are the questions that I had. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to talk about the scene, about Jersey, about house in general, about DJ?
No, I just wanted to close and say that, you know, I tried, you know, it took me a while to assess my part in it and whatever didn't happen or what should have happened, but I don't have no complaints. I don't. I'm just grateful for the time that I had to be a part of it and the people that I met in and along the way. That some people I'm having lasting friendships with. It wasn't the people that I have friendships that I have in house music. They're genuine friendships. They're not. It wasn't about the clubbing. I mean, we were friends outside of the music, so I was fortunate that way. And to be around some of the best DJs that ever walked the face of the earth, to be friends with them, to know them on a level that some people don't know them. It just was, I can't, it was a blessing. So it's all about a positive thing with me with that. I mean, I don't want to dwell on the negative. You know, I know when we talk about this interview, I was like, I don't want to talk about this or this to these people, because there's a lot of things that I could say and just talk about. And then we could be debate between me and people who are listening to this could be debating all day about what is the truth when I live the truth. So I just decided to
keep it classy. Yeah.
Leave it classy.
Well, one more question. DJ sets over time have changed. I remember when they were 8 or 12-hour sets, and now you look at the lineup and you see your favorite DJ and he's playing for an hour and a half. What happened and how does that change the club experience?
Again, that goes with programming, number one. Number two, you have the music. Today's, again, this is my opinion, you know, today a lot of the music that's out there is too repetitive. So it sounds it's sounding like one big old percussion track. So and then some of these guys just don't have the stamina. They just don't have it. They just don't have the stamina to do it. And a lot of these people, again, they're doing things at home. The streaming and everything makes it easier to do it at home. So you ain't got to go out and stay in the club all night. You can stay home and do whatever you do, whatever you drink or whatever you get high with, do it at home and just relax. And you ain't got to sit there and deal with all that parking and doing all that stuff. So people got accustomed to being home more so than in a venue. So
do you still go out clubbing today, or are you over it?
Yeah, I do still go out. I go out. I went to Indigenous House this year, which was here in Atlanta, and I went to House in the Park, And I went to Kelly Kells. I don't know if you're familiar with her, the South Carolina Project. This young lady's trying to put South Carolina in the map in South Carolina, house music on the map in South Carolina. And she did an event at Columbia, and I'm going to her next event in November. She's having Wayne Davis from the Paradox, who used to play at the Paradox, and Joe Questel playing that weekend. So I do go out. They've been mostly festivals pretty much, you know, and that's been, I haven't been to a festival in Jersey since 2018. Yeah, I think it was 2018. I haven't been to a festival in Jersey that long. Too many of them.
Now, given your history and experience in the club scene and your deep network, have you ever thought about throwing your own parties in Atlanta?
Oh, I have done that. I used to have my birthday parties in Zanzibar. I have done that. And most of those, when I was working at Move, a lot of that was at Movin, because that also tied into the store. Doing that helped bring, you know, customers to the store, bring business to the store. And, you know, I would use that to do, I would use birthday parties to do that. Yeah. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
All right, man.
All right, man. Peace. Have a good day.
You too.
All right. Take care.
All right.